Going? And a pleasure to meet you. Well, it's going very well. In 2017, just weeks before his death, Tom Petty broke down. He told his closest friend about the day that haunted him for decades. It happened in 1979. Someone was dying and Tom walked away. He never went back. He called it the most cowardly thing he ever did. The shame followed him through every song, every tour, every relationship. He tried to numb it with drugs. Nothing worked. What he did that day will break your heart. It explains everything about why he lived the way he did. Tom Petty came into the world on October 20th, 1950 at exactly 51 p.m. in Gainesville, Florida. He was born to Kitty, a local tax office worker, and Earl, a traveling salesman who was hardly ever home. Their house sat in a quiet neighborhood called the Duck Pond, filled with old Victorian homes and mossy trees, the kind of place that looked peaceful from the outside. But inside the Petty home, things were anything but peaceful. Tom's father, Earl, had a bad temper and a drinking problem. And by the time Tom was 5 years old, the beatings had already begun. One day in 1955, while playing with a slingshot in the yard, Tom accidentally hit the fin of a shiny 1955 Cadillac. The angry driver came straight to their house. Kitty warned him in a whisper, "This is bad. Your father's not going to like this." When Earl got home that night, he took off his belt and beat his son until his body was covered in raised welts from head to toe. Kitty and Tom's grandmother laid him on the bed, stripped off his clothes, and dabbed the wounds with cotton and alcohol while he cried in silence. It wasn't the last time. Tom learned early how to disappear when his father came near. He found comfort with his mother. Kitty was soft-spoken, kind, and full of music. She taught him country songs and always kept a radio playing nearby. But her own life was hard. She had epilepsy and cancer. And she quietly endured the storm of Earl's violent moods. One day, years later, while Tom was playing with his band, Mud Crutch, the family went on a fishing trip. On the way back, Earl had too many drinks and crashed the car into another vehicle. Everyone was knocked unconscious. Kitty's health never recovered. She became weaker and more withdrawn after that day. And when she died on October 21st, 1980, just one day after Tom's 30th birthday, Tom Sade knew she was already slipping away long before that. Things shifted again when Tom was 10. It was the summer of 1961. His uncle Earl Jernigan worked in the movie business and took him to see a film shoot in Ocala. The movie was Follow That Dream and the star was Elvis Presley. Hundreds of people crowded the streets to catch a glimpse. Then Elvis appeared glowing like some kind of god and walked right past young Tom, pausing just long enough to shake his hand. Tom stood frozen, too stunned to speak. That moment hit like a bolt of lightning. When he got home, he traded his slingshot to his friend Keith Harbin for a full stack of Elvis 45s. Then he locked himself in his room and played them over and over. His parents thought something was wrong with him, but he didn't care. He had found something stronger than fear. He had found music. Tom's little brother, Bruce, was born in 1957, 7 years after him. By the time Bruce could walk, the family was already falling apart. Earl's job was unstable. He gambled, drank more, and brought home less money. The house was filled with yelling. Bruce learned to keep his head down and play sports to avoid getting hit. Tom escaped through music and television, but it wasn't enough to protect him from what he saw. He watched his mother shrink under the weight of her sickness and his father's anger. It left a scar that never really healed. In 1964, when he was 14, Tom got his chance to turn all that pain into something new. A girl named Cindy at Howard Bishop Jr. High asked if he knew a band that could play at the school dance. He lied and said yes. Then he grabbed some friends and made one. They called themselves the Sundowners. They practiced in a wooden shed attached to the family home using old carpet to keep the sound in. That summer they won a Battle of the Bands contest and started playing Friday nights for $100 a show. The Beatles had just appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show that February and everything changed. Tom heard I Want to Hold Your Hand at the Teen Time Center and said I didn't have to be Elvis. He just needed a guitar and something to say. But things with the band turned dark in 1966. They were setting up for a show at the Delta Upsilon frat house near the University of Florida. Tom got into a fight with his drummer Dennis Lee. Words turned into threats. Dennis punched him in the face hard and then kept hitting. Fraternity boys stood around cheering as Tom got beaten to the ground. His mother cried all night when she saw the damage. That was the end of the Sundowners. Even though Earl bought Tom his first guitar for $35 from Sears, he never understood him. Earl wanted Asen, who played sports, went hunting, and acted tough. Tom wasn't like that. He was quiet, thoughtful, and completely hooked on music. After the Elvis moment, it only got stronger. When the Beatles hit America, it was like the world changed from black and white to color. Tom watched their Ed Sullivan performance on February 9, 1964, with 75 million others. He waited through every comedy skit just to see them play again. From that night on, it was clear to everyone around him something had flipped. Tom Petty was going to be a musician. No matter what, he made it through Gainesville High and graduated in 1968, all while playing in bands and letting his hair grow long, earning strange looks around town. After the Sundowners fell apart, Tom met a guitarist named Mike Campbell. Their bond was instant. They started playing together and formed Mudcrutch with a few other local guys, including Ben Montench, a classically trained keyboardist with a sharp ear. They played all over Florida, built their sound, and practiced at a beat-up farmhouse on NW 45th Avenue called Mudcrutch Farm. It was more than a name. It was home. By 1970, Tom was just 19 and fronting the band full-time. They recorded their first single in 1971 and started building a small following. The songs were strange and soulful, echoing the Grateful Dead more than the top 40 radio hits of Gainesville. In fall 1970, they landed a steady gig at Dub Steer Room, a rowdy bar with topless dancers and rowdy crowds. They played 6 nights a week from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. for $100 a week, more than some of their parents made. During the day, they worked landscaping jobs in the Florida heat for the University of Florida's grounds department. After work, they rehearsed at the farm, then played all night at Dub's. It was brutal. It was nonstop. It was the only way they could survive. In 1972, they threw a music festival at Mudcrutch Farm. Hundreds of people showed up. The police didn't stop it. That gave them confidence to go bigger. For Halloween, they threw a second one. This time it exploded into chaos. People took drugs. Some thought they were in A Clockwork Orange. Officials stormed in, ripped out the cords, grabbed drumsticks, and shut it down. Angry fans tore down the sound towers and set them on fire. The band got evicted. Mudcrutch was homeless again. Through it all, Tom's focus never wavered. On March 24, 1974, he married his high school girlfriend, Jane Bino. She was already pregnant with their daughter, Audria, who would be born on November 28 that same year. They lived above a barber shop and laundromat at 1618 NW First Avenue. They called themselves Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And they had no idea what was coming. Their debut album dropped on November 9, 1976. It sold only 500 copies in the first 3 months. Breakdown flopped, but then early in 1977, they opened for Blondie at the Whiskey. The critics went wild. That led to a UK tour in the spring, opening for Neil Slogren, and everything exploded. American Girl and Anything That's Rock and Roll took over British radio. The crowds lost their minds. Tom remembered landing in London at 7:30 in the morning and facing a full press swarm. It never slowed down. For 2 months, they were chased across the UK. Girls stormed the stage. Security couldn't keep them back. They weren't just opening anymore. They were headlining. When they re-released Breakdown in late 1977, it hit then 40 on the Billboard chart in 1978. The thing that flopped the first time was now the thing pulling them back up. In March 1979, Shelter Records got sold off to OMCA. The moment it happened, Tom Petty felt betrayed. He had a clause in his contract that said he had to be consulted before anyone could sell his name to another company, but no one called him. Suddenly, MCA owned him. He said he wouldn't be bought and sold like meat. So, MCA sued him. They locked him out of recording, performing, or signing with anyone else. They tried to bury him with lawsuits, 9 of them. At the same time, Petty went into the studio and started recording anyway. He didn't ask for permission. He paid out of pocket, racking up more than $500,000 in recording costs for what would become Damn the Torpedoes. On May 23, 1979, with nowhere else to turn, he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. His debts were $576,630. His assets were just $56,845. But the move voided his contracts and forced MCA to come to the table. One terrified record executive told Billboard, "If this works, every artist will try it." And it worked. Petty got to renegotiate. He kept creative control, but everything around him was falling apart. His marriage was crumbling. Jane Bino, whom he'd married in 1974, was mentally unstable and already struggling with addiction. She called constantly. Sometimes she threatened suicide if he didn't stay on the phone. Their daughter Audria saw it all. Years later, she would call her mother cruel and verbally abusive. But in 1979, Tom did leave. He threw himself into work instead. On October 19, 1979, Damn the Torpedoes came out. It hit number 2 on the Billboard 200. It went triple platinum. Songs like Refugee, Don't Do Me Like That, and Here Comes My Girl played everywhere. The album was raw and honest, recorded during legal chaos and emotional exhaustion. Petty later said there was a sense of persecution that year. Lawsuits, pressure, and pain surrounded every note, but it all cut through. By 1980, they had sold over 3 million albums. Bassist Ron Blair had money now. So did the rest of the band. But success brought pressure. The music got more professional, more uptight. Blair started fading away. He couldn't stand the endless touring, the bad sound systems, the meaningless hotel rooms. By 1982, he was gone. Petty told the Gainesville Sun that Ron had vanished from their lives long before he quit. "We didn't see him socially ever." Back in 1981, MCA tried to raise the price of the next album by $1 from $8.98 to $9.98. They called it superstar pricing. Petty was furious. He said he didn't need the extra $1 and neither did MCA. He threatened to pull the album or name at $8.98. A record store in Los Angeles announced a boycott. MCA folded. On May 5, 1981, Hard Promises came out at $8.98. It went platinum. The waiting hit No. 19. On the cover, Petty stood in a record store. Bins behind him all labeled 8.98. But nothing was easy anymore. Petty spent 18 months trying to record Southern accents. He wanted it to be a double album about the American South. He recorded it in his own basement studio, obsessing over every vocal. He tried to sing in a Southern accent, but it came out forced like a cartoon. During one session, after hearing a raw take of Rebels, he snapped. He punched the wall, broke his hand, his fingers were crushed. At Cedars-Sinai Hospital, doctors inserted pins and told him he might never play guitar again. He had to undergo electroshock therapy just to get his hand to close. Dave Stewart and Robbie Robertson helped finish the album, but Petty couldn't hide how much it hurt. The 1985 tour used the Confederate flag as stage decoration. It was tied to the song Rebels, meant to show the mindset of a Southern character. But fans took it differently. They waved flags at concerts. Petty realized too late WAVA had started. In North Carolina, he stopped the show mid-performance and called himself stupid. Years later, in 2015, he said the flag should never have represented them. It was a downright stupid thing to do. At the same time, cocaine filled the studio. Petty said they had too much time and too many drugs. Stan Lynch called it dancing with the devil. Mike Campbell once snorted something he thought was coke. It shut down his